The Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
Hello, I'm Leonard Nimoy. The following tale of alien encounters is true, and by true, I mean false. It's all lies, but they're entertaining lies. And in the end, isn't that the real truth? The answer is no.
Welcome to issue 1106 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you for downloading and checking us out this week. Matthew is out. That's fine. He'll be back next year. Don't worry about that. But we do have Rodrigo here.
Hey.
Rodrigo, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Did you see the new trailer for the Karate Kid Legends today?
I didn't. I saw that it was there, but it was like as I was like scrambling out the door to do something else today, and so I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Oh, okay. So this is a lot of people questioned what was going on when they had the Karate Kid reboot with was it Jaden Smith?
Cobra Kai?
No. The Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan Karate Kid that came out in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
This one has Jackie Chan's
right?
character coming to America to meet with Daniel San and have him help out a kid that he's mentoring. And so it's like bringing all of the Miyagi-verse together. It's bringing the original Karate Kid series, the Jackie Chan quote-unquote reboot, which really wasn't a reboot now that it turns out, and the Cobra Kai series all into the same space. And I'm kind of impressed that they're able to take this further than most people thought they should.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like, I mean, lots of people love the Karate Kid.
Yeah, who doesn't?
But not a lot of people love the sequels or the reboot.
Mm-hmm.
So up until Cobra Kai, people were like, why are you doing this? Like, nobody wants more Karate Kid.
Right.
But then Cobra Kai was successful. So, and unfortunately, it wasn't even like successful in its first run. It had to move to like Netflix, right?
Yeah, it was on YouTube.
To really pick up that steam. So, it'll be. I think it'll be interesting, but it's like, I don't know. You like the Karate Kid? You like the
I
first one?
love the very first Karate Kid movie. I thought it was fantastic.
Like, did you watch the trailer and think, wow, great, more Karate Kid?
I was like, wait, how are they going to bring this reboot into this? And is this my biggest question was, and this is a big thing that I think people have to ask themselves these days, what universe is this set in? Is this set in a universe where Cobra Kai never happened? Is this set in a universe of the reboot? But no, as I'm doing all the research and everything, it's all set in the same place. I'm like, that's fascinating. Now, I haven't watched the Cobra Kai series after season 2, and so I know I'm behind on like 4 seasons of this. So I don't know how that ended. But the fact that this trailer opens up on Mr. Miyagi's house with all the cars still sitting in the front yard and Daniel apparently living in the house, that's not how Cobra Kai started. So I'm still not sure exactly where this movie is placed, if it's placed after the events of Cobra Kai or if it's placed in between, the Karate Kid movies and Cobra Kai. I don't know where it fits, but the nice thing about this trailer is it doesn't give away too much of the story. It gives you away just enough. There's a troubled kid that needs the help, and only Jackie Chan and Daniel LaRusso can come together and get this kid into the tournament and get the bullies off of his back, right? And then there's a couple of action sequences, but you don't know much more than that. And I think for a trailer, this was a trailer that I would want to see in movies because it kind of left me sitting there saying, ooh, I kind of want to see this.
Yeah, I'm watching it and it does look good. Like the movie looks good.
Yeah.
Right. We've gotten a lot of like really sort of volumey looking shows and movies here for a little bit. But it does seem like there's some like intentionality to like it brings back all of that neon.
Yeah.
from 80s movies.
Yeah,
So
Well,
it's got it's got a through line. It looks good, at least in the trailer.
it's funny because I think right now there is a serious backlash to CGI, and it's kind of been coming for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years that people are starting to have this backlash. What amazes me is that I have students now that see stuff like VHS and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome. Look at this look of this." And how this isn't, and it's not digital, because that's what they've grown up with. And for years I've been like, "Can you guys just watch these old movies?" And they're like, "No, man, it's old." And then just to see them fully embrace like practical effects, embrace going back to shooting on film. I mean, if it wasn't for Christopher Nolan, Kodak would be defunct right now. And now there's a resurgence of some of Kodak's popular film stocks that aren't IMAX film stocks. And so I think over the next 6 or 7 years, we're going to see this huge resurgence of people who are all about shooting on film, going back and doing things practically, moving more away from CGI because it doesn't look, everybody knows what CGI looks like. We're giving you the real thing. And then, so that'll max out in about 6 years. And then right after that, we'll start to see people coming back in and doing even more CGI than before. And I think that we're just seeing that cyclical thing happen. And right now we're swinging back into the practical effects realm. And I'm not saying, and again, for someone who has spent most of his career working in digital post-production and teaching digital post-production, After Effects and those kinds of things, there's still a place. Don't get me wrong. There will always be a place for CGI, but everything doesn't have to be CGI. Everything doesn't have to be on green screen. Like, what was the quote unquote flop Marvel movie with the gods?
Eternals.
Yeah, the Eternals. They shot everything on location for that movie, which was like great. And so I'm hoping that we'll see more of that. Yes, the volume is cool. Yes, the volume did its job exactly as the volume needed it to do, but I don't think everything needs to be shot on the volume.
Right.
So I think we're going to see a return to that. And certainly maybe we can get that in a movie like Karate Kid. Have you gotten to the point in the trailer where the kid jumps up on the fire escape and then swings around and kicks the other kid?
Yeah, it looks rad.
Yeah, it does. Right. That was the shot right there that I was like, man, I kind of want to go see this movie now, even though I hate going to the movies.
And it looks like Jackie Chan's actually going to get some fighting in too. So
yeah. And I guess, what is it? How old is Jackie Chan and how old is Ralph Macchio? You look up how old Jackie Chan is.
Okay.
And I'll look up Ralph Macchio. Ralph Macchio, 63 years old.
Jackie Chan is 70 years old.
Wow, these guys are only like 7 years apart.
Yeah.
That is the other thing that is really amazing. So, yeah. And they're also in their 60s and they're still doing action movies. So congratulations to them. Yeah. Listeners, if you have any thoughts on the new Karate Kid Legends trailers, we would love to hear you share your thoughts, or actually read your thoughts. And you can do that by going over to the Major Spoilers Discord server. Join it for free. Link in the show notes. That's all you have to do. Click, sign up, get in there. Doesn't cost you anything. You can join our growing community of really awesome people. When I say that, I am not, a lot of social media sites, Rodrigo, unfortunately, become a cesspool of hate and rage baiting and that kind of stuff. Everyone in the Major Spoilers Discord server, I know you go in and visit quite a bit. It's a nice place. People aren't in there just fighting. They may have some disagreements, but you don't see the level of vitriol that you see in other communities. Our community is pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so go over there, join up, say hello. I'm sure everybody will respond with cat gifts or penguins. I don't know what it is, but go and check out the Major Spoilers Discord server today. All right, Rodrigo, I am interested in, I know it's a couple of weeks away, I am interested in the best of Princess Celestia, My Little Pony collection from IDW Publishing.
Right. So coming out January 8th, which will be here before you know it, because the holidays kind of teleport you to the other side before you can realize it. So this is a collection of already released books. It contains My Little Pony Friendship is Magic number 117 and number 65. My Little Pony Micro Series number 8, and My Little Pony Friends Forever number 38. I was interested in this because I know that we either are or are heading towards a My Little Pony like reboot. I think the new My Little Pony toys are like out or about to come out.
Yep.
And so I don't know if they're going to go all the way and make a brand new TV show, but they'll likely make new like short movies or something like that at the very least. They'll have some sort of video component. So already Friendship is Magic, right? This particular version of My Little Pony is becoming rarer, like less material for it is coming out. And then when the new stuff comes out, it's just going to end, right? And chances are, purposefully, a lot of this stuff is going to go out of print, just so that it like forcibly focuses people on the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, as kind of like a last bang, I was interested in this, which didn't disappoint, because Princess Celestia is like a very weird character in My Little Pony.
Mm-hmm.
She's basically a goddess.
Mm.
And so she's like eternal. So it's like one of the stories actually two of the stories. One of the stories references her being around for the entirety of like a person's lifetime. So like you meet an old pony at the beginning, because like Twilight Sparkle and the girls are like they're hanging out and they meet an old pony.
Yeah.
And then there's a flashback to when that pony was young. And Princess Celestia looks exactly the same. And then there's another one where they're like talking about this like ancient wizard that they've referenced multiple times on the show, but I don't think I've never seen an episode where they show him. But in this one, they do show him way back in the long ago. And of course, Princess Celestia is there and she looks basically exactly the same.
Huh. Okay.
So it's that's the thing that's interesting about this character, is that she's been around forever. So you can tell stories that span a long time. The other thing that's fun about the My Little Pony comics in general is that, unlike the show, which is pretty much 100% on model at all times, except for some like very notable and purposeful deviations, like I feel like the comics get a little bit more leeway. Like this comic has like ponies like grimacing, like really grimacing, and like looking scared and freaked out, and like not in a mild way like you might see in the series. So it's interesting. Like I would say like definitely this series, because the series has it, right? Something, if you're just like jumping into any random My Little Pony comic, you might not be able to see it. This has a few instances where you can see them like stretching the edges of what the on model means, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That said, it's cool, it's nice, but there's really no through line. It is kind of a best of.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I find very interesting about this, because IDW does this with all of their properties. They do it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with individual characters. They do it with My Little Pony. They do it with Sonic. They do it with Transformers and Godzilla. I don't know if I've seen them do it with Star Trek yet, but they will do this thing where they will call it a one-shot. And when you look at it, it's like, no, this is a small trade paperback is what it is.
Right.
And I find it funny that instead of just calling it a trade paperback, they just call it this one shot. It gives it a little bit more longer shelf life, I think, but I think it also allows it to be put somewhere else on the shelves besides in the comic book trades.
It feels like what Warner Brothers and other like cartoon studios used to do, right? Remember Justice League?
Oh yeah.
Where they'd be like, instead of like, they're like, you can buy a whole season of Justice League, but also here's a DVD that has like 2 or 3 like related episodes.
Of like Batman or Superman or something like that.
It would be called like Danger at Sea, and it would have like one Aquaman episode and one episode where like randomly they were out in the ocean or there was like a sea monster or something, right? But unrelated. So that's like it's like additional discs to like trick your grandma into like buying them. Because if you already have the season, you already have all of them, so you don't need like the extra ones. But so yeah, that's kind of what this feels like. Is like, obviously, if you're somebody who's been collecting or following My Little Pony, this is nothing to you, right? You already have these, or you've already seen them. And it really is much more of a thing, I think, to grab people and then be like, hey, if you like this random smattering of My Little Pony comics, maybe you should pick up a trade of like volume 1 of Friendship is Magic.
I think these also work really great for like gifts, right? Where you just want a casual read for a friend to kind of maybe introduce them into who is Celestia or who is, you know, Mothra in the case of the Godzilla comics. And you can just kind of throw it to them and say, hey, here's a best of collection that maybe then will prompt you to go and read something else. And you're not paying like $20 for the trade. This is like $8 for 1, 2, 3, 4 issues.
Yeah, it probably is a good gift for preteens, I would say. Where, because like I remember when I was a kid, like I ended up with like 3 Spider-Man comics, and they were clearly from like wildly different eras, right?
Yeah.
Just from like paper texture, you could tell they're from different eras. And it's like they're not related, and as a kid you're kind of like, how can these 3 things happen to like the same character, right? And so it's like with this, it's kind of the same thing, like because these stories are unrelated, it's like as a kid you like can read through them and be like, okay, well, I'm interested in what happens like before and after each of these episodes, and guess what, you can find that out because those issues exist. So I'm gonna give it 3 slices of meatloaf. It's solid, above average, but it is basically a trade. And it's a trade that has a bunch of unrelated stuff, and I don't think it has any bonus stuff in the back either. So, you know, a lot of times with trades, you get sketches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this is just like a very, very workman, like exactly 100 pages, like kind of a thing.
No, I get it. So, my sister was kind of into the My Little Ponies for a short time. She was more of a Strawberry Shortcake and Care Bears kid. Was your sister into the ponies?
My sister really liked the My Little Ponies, which was good because they actually make great mounts for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So I would raid her pony collection for mounts when it was time to set a pawn with like Snake Tower or whatever Skeletor lives.
Yeah. Okay. I was curious what your tangent point was for My Little Pony. So
no, definitely that. Yeah.
All right, cool. Out this week from Image Comics, it's Mother Effin' Monsters from Jay Holthman and Michael Lee Harris. Now, Mother Effin' Monsters is part of the Horizon Experiment, and I've reviewed one of the previous Horizon Experiment episodes issues here on the Major Spoilers podcast in the past. The Horizon Experiment is a PORNSAK Pichetshote concept where basically it's like pilot season. And so he's gathering up people to tell stories of people of color, you know, people on the periphery, and letting people just kind of pitch their idea and their story to audiences. And I don't know if at the end of this 5-issue experiment, if they're going to come back and say, okay, everybody vote on your favorite one and we're going to carry that forward, or if this is based on sales, if this is something that the creators can then go to Image and say, hey, I would like to make Mother Effin' Monsters a regular series. Will you publish this comic? It's a great concept and a great idea. The biggest drawback that I have of the Horizon Experiment is usually everything ends on a cliffhanger and we're not going to get anything else. More or less. More than likely, we won't get anything less. And that's kind of my big disappointing part with Mother Effing Monsters. This is what if Evil Dead, but for black people. That's how it's pitched by Jay Holtham, Holtham, in that this story takes place in a very nice Ivy League school, predominantly white, and we're introduced to our black protagonist, and he's a super nerd, and he's just, trying to make his way across the campus, and 3 of his friends come up from the city to spend the weekend with him. Meanwhile, something evil is going wrong over at, Alpha Gamma, whatever house, where the white brothers are sacrificing black people for some evil deed. And then it turns out that our protagonist and his friends get invited to the frat party, only to find out that all the other black people that have also been invited are part of this big sacrifice to unleash demons and evil onto the world. And of course, everybody fights back. The Book of the Dead, or, the Necronomicon, basically escapes, and that they discover by the end of the issue that there are multiple books around the country that they will have to go and track down. And that is supposed to be the launching point then for the series, where our hero and his 3 friends will go and take on, monsters that are out there in the world. I really like the idea of, we saw this with Get Out. We've seen this with, what was the one, the alien invasion on the block that had
Attack the Block.
Attack the Block. We see that there. I really like that kind of stuff where we can put different characters into those situations that predominantly, historically, have been the role of white characters. Nothing against Bruce Campbell, because I think Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead is fantastic. But I think here, when we get an Evil Dead, but for black nerds, I think that brings a different spin to it. So I really like the story and the heart that is going into the story itself. I think for racists, this book has everything that you will hate, because there are, well, first of all, there's black people in it. Second of all, there are a couple of LGBTQA characters in it that'll make people angry. And then just the fact that, they're racist, evil white guys, I think is going to piss a bunch of people off. But I really enjoyed the heck out of Mother Effing Monsters. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a great romp. I could see this. And I think I would probably describe this as maybe not Evil Dead for black nerds, but Attack the Block meets Get Out, because there is this horror aspect of it. It is silly, and it does have your protagonists who are not well versed in fighting and everything else, using their skills to bring about the end of the bad guys. My biggest complaint is with the art, and not the fact that the person doesn't know how to draw. Michael Lee Harris has a very interesting eye for how he wants to approach storytelling in this. And the way that he wants to approach storytelling, and I'm not familiar with any of his other work, so it may be that this is his style, but every single panel is shot as though it was through a wide-angle lens, borderline fisheye lens in many instances. It's very loose. It's very flowy. I like the cartoony aspects of it, but the fact that we get such severe warping in every single panel was a little bit of a put off to me. I will say that. But otherwise, I thought the color selection, I thought the drawing, everything, the story, great. But the extreme wide angle shots really put me off. But I'm still giving this 4 slices of meatloaf out of 5. You can go pick that up this week. Mother Effing Monsters. And it's spelled as you would think that the effing word would be spelled, but the C has been replaced with an asterisk. So go and check that out. Other than some bad language and cultists getting beat up, there's really nothing in here that is offensive that would need this to be in a poly bag or anything like that. So it's good, clean fun, I guess is what I would say. So there you go. You should check it out, Rodrigo. I thought I had a lot of fun with it, and it would be interesting to see what happens with some of these Horizon Experiment titles after this ends. And I don't know if this is the 5th one or the 4th one in the series, but yeah, go check that out. I want to thank everybody who has been part of the Major Spoilers Podcast Patreon Club. I guess that's what we can call you, our patrons, over at patreon.com/major spoilers. We've had a good year, not a great year. We've struggled a lot this year, but thanks to the support of our patrons, we've been able to replace the failing computer that was plaguing us about 6 months ago. We are able to pay our bills. That is also a plus. But we're not able to do a lot more than that. And so I'm asking you in 2025, if you're looking for something to do, consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/major spoilers, a couple of bucks a month. If you want to sign up at the $2 level and just keep us keeping on, then you can do that. But if you want to get access to bonus episodes, including the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, where this week Rodrigo and I went off on more media literacy, and we asked the question, is Rorschach a good guy, a bad guy, or does Alan Moore even know what he's talking about? You can get that exclusively at patreon.com/major spoilers. Rodrigo, do you know what else I've been doing over at patreon.com/major spoilers this year?
No.
It kind of came about as an unintended effect where Brad and I would be doing the GM Roundtable, which you can access at the gold level. That's $10 a month. We started talking about detective shows, and we ended up doing a mini series on the TV series, the Apple series Sugar, which, spoiler alert, we both really hated a lot. But then that spun us off talking about what makes detective stories work. And then I was like, hey, why don't we just do our own little book club for our patrons? And so if you join our Discord server, you can see what books we're reading going into the new year and for the last couple of months. But every month, everybody reads a book. Then last 2 months, Brad hasn't been available, but I've been sitting down, or Brad and I sit down, and we talk about the book that we are going to read for the month. And we release that absolutely free on our Patreon. So if people want to be part of the book club, you can go and listen to those episodes absolutely free. I'll give everybody a heads up for January 2025. We're reading William Gibson's The Peripheral, which is what the Amazon Prime series is based on. So if you want to get in on that book club episode for January, go get the book, read it, and then we will talk about that at the end of January. But that's something that's completely free that we're doing for our patrons over at patreon.com/major spoilers. At the $5 a month level, the silver level membership, you get up to 4 bonus episodes a month. At the gold level, you get up to 8 bonus episodes per month, plus free stuff that we're putting up all the time, like the Major Spoilers Book Club. Go find out more. Sign up today. Give yourself a present going into 2025 by going to patreon.com/major spoilers. Rodrigo, it has become an annual tradition at Major Spoilers to look at Asterix and his adventures, the Gauls' adventures, as seen through Belgian comics. And so we are back again looking at Asterix and Caesar's Gift, which this version that we're looking at came out in 2024 from Paper Cuts. But it's in this story, a legionnaire has retired from the military, and Caesar is willing to gift all of his legionnaires a plot of land that they get to do whatever they want with. But one legionnaire happens to get super drunk one night, and he says something bad about Caesar, and Caesar is like, I will not embarrass this man, but I will get my revenge on him by gifting him the plot of land that just so happens to be occupied by our Gaulish heroes. And so the legionnaire, in his drunken stupor, passes it off to a innkeeper who decides that he's going to move to this village, kick everybody out, and he will have his plot of land that he can do anything he wants with, except that's not how it works in with the Gauls. And before we know it, and I didn't know that, this is the first time that I had read this issue. Before you know it, this turns into a politics story.
Right.
And I wasn't expecting that so soon after our own recent election here in the United States. And presumably South Korea and France and everywhere else. So I was really kind of taken by surprise that this has a lot of political election commentary in it for a comic that is 30, 40 years old.
I was not expecting that either, especially the way it starts. A lot of Asterix comics are sort of like, here's a bad guy the bad guy is trying to do something to the Gauls or get something from them or steal something from them. And then the book is kind of like multiple vignettes of like
Mhm.
Asterix like foiling their plans, right? And I
Yeah.
assumed that's what this was going to be. Like this guy was going to get there and he was going to get like the Roman legions behind him. And then it was going to be that. But it isn't actually. The guy, the innkeeper, runs for chief
Mhm.
of the Gauls. And the Gauls are like, sure, right? Like nobody is like, no, you don't belong here or anything. They're like, yeah, I guess he's actually allowed to do that. So, okay. And then the current chief, who I think is Vital
Vital
Statistics,
statistics, yeah.
starts sweating because he's never really had to run before, or at least hasn't done so in a while. And kind of like hilarity ensues as they try to secure some votes here and there from the other Gauls, while also the original Legionnaire who wanted that plot of land, who decides that he wants the plot of land after all, shows up, starts accosting the innkeeper, and also gets the Roman legions involved.
And I think and so then it of course ends as many Asterix stories are, with the Gauls beating the crap out of the Romans, and everybody goes and has a feast at the end. What I wasn't prepared for is some of the rhetoric that we see in this book is a lot of the same rhetoric that we see today, right? Where you see people trying to curry favor to get votes. We see, in this case, geriatrics, who is very much like, I mean, he's basically saying, I don't like foreigners, get them out of here.
Yeah.
I will bring back things the way they used to be. And this isn't something that was just printed in the last 4 years. This is something that this copy that we're reading is quite a bit older and has those same kind of words that we've heard a lot in the political environment recently.
Nice to see the character who is like, whatever we're doing, I don't care what we're doing as long as we're getting all the foreigners out. Represented as an old guy that nobody listens to.
Yes. And the fact that Mrs. Geriatrics is a young, very attractive blonde woman, I thought was also kind of funny there as well. But then in the end, you know, the family of the innkeeper is just screaming about, oh, let's go back home. Let's go back to our inn. We don't belong here. We don't want to be here. To ultimately, I think everybody kind of puts aside their differences and they end up staying in the village, which I thought was kind of nice.
Well, I think they end up going back in the end, but they go
they
back
have some relatives and
good
connections. That's right.
Yeah, they ended on good terms. Because they kind of get unified when the Romans come after them.
Yeah.
And the Gauls, you know, end up protecting them because these guys, although they showed up and at first they were like, well, your village belongs to us. Eventually the husband is just like, hey, maybe I can just run an inn in this village before he kind of gets pushed to run for chief. So he's just like an innkeeper and people like him. They show up at his inn. And I thought, like, as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, are they like introducing a new character that's just going to stay? Like, I would be fine with this innkeeper character, like, just being a background character for most of them. And in fact, his name is Orthopedics. So it's you know, it's like the names that end in X are like Gaul sounding, supposed to be like Gaul names.
Right.
So I was like, well, he's already named in the Gaul way of that this book does. So I kind of thought they were like, oh, they're introducing this new character and now he's going to stay and we're going to see him in the background of other stuff. But no, they do end up leaving at the end, which is fine. I also thought if they were introducing a new character that was going to be in the back, they probably should have given him a little bit more, like they should have like shushed him up a little bit, like given him a little bit more like design, because you know he's like a pretty normal looking character.
Yeah. So
compared to like the Gauls themselves that are like very brightly colored and have
Right.
like wings and horns and stuff coming out of their helmets.
So Orthopedics is drawn as a caricature of a French actor who was very
Oh.
popular from up until about 1960 when he died. And so when I'm looking at the picture of this actor and comparing it to Orthopedics in the comic, I'm like, yeah, I can see why they're doing that. And Zaza, Influenza, his daughter, could be a possible reference for Zsa Zsa Gabor in this piece. So that's
Oh.
why I think that especially those two characters are drawn quite a bit different than what we, like you said, what we normally expect with these kind of characters.
I see. Well, that makes more sense then.
Yeah. The other thing that I find rather interesting is as I'm going through the list of Asterix books, this one gets referenced a lot as having a lot of big moments, or big small moments, I guess I should say. For example, the chief's shield bearers that are always carrying him around.
Uh-huh.
Prior to this, every time we've seen the chief in the comics, it's been different shield bearers. This time, the shield bearers will be the same ones going forward for the rest of the books. So that's one big thing.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I saw that I found was interesting, I don't know if I can find it really quick. I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, this one does appear to be one of the more popular or more important books in the Asterix line, even though it was it's like the 36th adventure, 21st volume of these
Yeah.
characters.
This one was cute. Like it was like fun and it was funny and it didn't like it the only political message is look at these dorks playing politics, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, beware fascist or anything like that. Like it was like just very straightforward, like let's have our characters get involved in politics and see what becomes of what. It's interesting because it's like it's a way to split up some of the characters, like Asterix
Mhm.
and Obelix end
Mhm.
up on different sides of the
Mhm.
thing before Asterix basically figures out there's something else going on, right?
Yeah.
But at the beginning, because Obelix is very taken with Zaza, and Asterix is kind of a traditionalist and wants to help the current chief.
Right.
They end up on different sides of the aisle, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. In the past, we have commented on how some of the humor is a little mean spirited and also maybe a little bit bigoted in that they're making fun of stereotypes
Sure.
in the different countries that they visit. We've commented about that. But this one seems pretty flat footed, except for the part where they're like, look at politicians and how stupid the whole political process is. And I appreciated that. And I thought that the story was charming and how things get misinterpreted and how, and especially when it comes to the Asterix and Obelix fight, and then how Zaza falls in love with Asterix instead of Obelix because all he wants to do is go out into the woods and quote unquote pick boars. And she's like, that's not what I really wanted to do. But Asterix sure seems to be paying attention to me, so I will switch over to him. Yeah, I thought this was a really charming story. The art obviously is really good. This is from 1977 for the first trade collection of this. It was originally published in 1974 in Pilote magazine. And I don't really have any. Do you have negative things to say about this?
Not really. It's interesting that I didn't know that the two characters were references, but that's fine because that's another thing that can be an issue with me reading Asterix is that if it has a lot of references, there are references that I'm not gonna get, like references to like 1960s Europe. Like I'm just like, nope.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm gonna get that. There are no like black or Asian people in this one, so nobody gets a horrendous depiction. So that's
Although
good.
I will say that they do at least mention the pirates in this, saying that somebody had joined the pirate crew, and then the boat kept sinking, and it's like, oh, okay, there's a reference to the
reference
pirates.
to the pirates.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So, but going back to the thing about not knowing the current pop culture of the time or the current news of the time that these things are referencing, do you think that also makes this somewhat endearing and long lasting? Because you're right, unless I would have looked it up on who orthopedics was designed after, I would have just probably agreed with you. Yeah, this is just a kind of a bland character. But then when you learn a little bit more about it, you're like, oh, and when you find out that this is the presidential election of 1974 was also on the same date of the publication of this release, it's like, oh, maybe there was some, intent on creating a political story to coincide with the French presidential election day. But again, I don't think any of that matters in the long run. In some other books, maybe yes, but this one probably not.
I mean, it doesn't, because the story is fine, but also if you wanna, it's nice because if you want to read into it, like if you want to read up on the political climate of the time, it's there for you, and you can find those things that are being referenced. But I didn't do that. I didn't even so much as think to do that. I just kind of took the book as it was coming at face value, and I was like, yeah, this is good.
Yes, yeah.
A fun little story.
Yeah, and it's always good every year, I think, for us to jump in and just check in with these characters and see what's going on. I think next year it is Asterix and the Great Crossing. So we'll see what that is all about. That one may be problematic, especially if they're coming to the New World before, before people got politically correct. So we'll see what happens there. Bottom line for me is I really enjoyed this. And I think if somebody is listening or looking for something that is like a mint on the meal of the current election campaign that we just finished, this one might just be a nice moment for you to laugh at some of the silliness that goes on in politics. So I'm going to give this a thumbs up. I really like this one a lot. What about you, Rodrigo? Final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts. The tavern owner, the inn owner that's running for chief, ends up with like a lot of gifts, but they're gifts from Gauls, and the wife especially kind of hates them, so they end up buried. And somebody makes a joke about like future anthropologists finding that and being very confused. Yeah, and that actually made me laugh out loud. So I would say definitely, if you're looking for like an easy volume of Asterix that doesn't have that's not too long, doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's got some like decent jokes, I would definitely recommend this one.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking us out this week. It is the holiday times, so either we're getting a best of or something else next week and the week after. But if you found value in any of the shows that we've done this year, then you definitely want to hit us up on Patreon, where you can enjoy more things. We do have a couple of extra bonus episodes that are coming out, talking about what we're looking forward to in 2025. That'll be out next week or the week after, probably next week. And so you can catch that over there. And then you can also check out over on the Major Spoilers website for free. You don't even have to join. I posted all of the trades that we are going to review in the third segment of this show, or the second segment, depending on how 2025 goes. But we're going to start things off, as we often do, with Tintin, Destination Moon, and then we are kicking off, oh my gosh, almost a 2-month-long run of Void Rivals and the new G.I. Joe Transformers universe, the Energon universe, over at Skybound Entertainment. Yeah, it's gonna be a trip. So prepare yourself, Rodrigo. Okay. So listeners, check us out at patreon.com/major spoilers. And until 2025, when we will talk with you again live, we know that you love comics and we do too. Have a great holiday season.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose, I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. With a found a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya what a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm stark raving rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a funny in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.
The cosmic ballet goes on.